What is up, everyone? It is another episode of Esports with Emrick. I'm, of course, Emrick, coming to you live talking about Worlds. Day 2, a look ahead at Day 3, and talking about it from a betting DFS standpoint. As always, if you like this content, please hit the subscribe button. Go over to the esports department, pop in the Discord, chat with us, tilt with us during the games. And if we help win you some money, go ahead and hit the donate button. It's always appreciated. We should have all of the projections updated into labs if you're using that, but they are on the website under MSI projections in the projections under League of Legends. But there's also CSGO, Valorant, a ton of other stuff for you over there. So let's get right into it. So I hope your World's Day 2 was a little bit better than mine. I've been just absolutely rocked the last couple days in this tournament. And, I think we've learned a couple things and some lessons that we definitely, can take to heart. I know I've seen some screenshots and people have done very well. They've just been on the opposite side in a couple spots, and, good for them. They've been sharper than I have recently. So it is what it is. Let's take a look, though, as we get into this. Let's go ahead and recap what we saw today. And let me make this a little bit bigger. Boom. Here we go. In that first game of the day, we had Hanwha Life against Peace. This game kind of went the way that we expected it to go. It was a complete domination from start to finish of Hanwha over Peace. Peace probably one of the weaker teams in play-ins, and Hanwha, arguably one of the best. And it was shown here. And then the other thing that we can take away from it is we did see the teams kind of loosen up a little bit here in Day 2. That was something that we had mentioned and talked about yesterday in terms of the games being a little bit tight, a little bit conservative, nobody really wanting to make those mistakes. And, here in Day 2 with a lot more on the line for some of these teams, we did see a little bit of a faster skirmish-heavy type of style from a lot of these teams. So Hanwha beat Peace. There was no surprise there. Then there was LNG versus Red. Again, really no surprise here. LNG kind of took care of business. Red has come in as the representative from the CBLOL, and much like Pain last year, has caused absolutely no pain, has not looked good, and has not brought that kind of the skirmish heavy, kind of chaotic team fight style that we were kind of hoping that we would see from a CBLOL representative. Maybe they've been trying and just been getting shut down, but this game was, it was just complete domination again. No surprise there. LNG dominant, and Icon did almost nothing. That was kind of depressing if you were fading Chovy on that 2-game slate, who went 3-0-4, not exactly an exciting scoreline. You kind of felt good, and then Icon does this 2-1-0 thing here. Okay, whatever. Moving on, we get into a game that didn't necessarily profile as one that should look like this in the final scoreline. You had an Infinity Esports team that, we talked about throughout the first 2 days, had a very, very low death per loss, small sample size, but they came in playing against Peace. And, one of the things that happens sometimes, as we kind of discussed in prior days, is that when you get two teams, regardless of those teams being good or bad, if the two teams are of similar talent, you get these type of situations where the one team just can't put the other team away, especially when you get these lower level kind of matches. There was a game that just comes to mind. It was in the spring. It was XL versus Vitality. I believe it was before they made a lot of the changes. Just neither of the teams could really finish each other, and it ended up with just a gigantic scoreline. And in this case, it was a gigantic scoreline for both of these teams. Certainly small sacks for Infinity were viable. Bug Axe almost ended that under 14 and a half kill prop very, very quickly in this tournament. Right now, it's still looking pretty safe. Peace came out with the win. Babip was just absolutely on fire early, and then Tally got fed, and it's just hard to deal with a fed Aurelia. Peace getting the win here, 21 kills, some pretty decent kill participation from some members, bad from others. And the same thing can be said about Infinity. This kind of set the pace for today, set the tone. You knew that if you didn't have one of these two sides, I mean, it was just feasible that you could have played a certain combination from Infinity and felt good going into the next couple of games, but Peace really opened up a lot of the other favorites, and it made it not feel good for somebody that likes to play dogs but didn't have a ton of Peace. I did have some Peace, 4 stacks with the Tally Captain. I had it with GS, was feeling pretty good at this point. Then we get Hanwha versus Red. Red had been run over by teams pretty much, earlier in the day by LNG. LNG had beaten Hanwha. There was some hope that Red could maybe pull an upset here because Hanwha hadn't looked infallible thus far in the tournament, but that wasn't to be. Again, complete domination, played the way that they should. Again, the kill participation from Hanwha wasn't really representative of a 21 kill game. You got Chovy there, 1-0-10, got the bonus, but Deft with 9 kills did not kind of get the score that you were hoping for from somebody that had 9 kills because he only had 3 assists to go with it. Red just has lost very, very quickly. We're going to look at a couple different stats that are pretty indicative of what we've seen from them and kind of analyze that. But, going into this game has killed me. I kind of called it yesterday that Beyond Gaming was going to take all of my money today. Believing in them yesterday, believing them today were both mistakes. Cloud9 has looked good. And, I'll touch on something here. It's been mentioned, and it was even mentioned in the broadcast where when they were interviewing Perks, they talked about the disappointment at MSI, but he was quick to point out that MSI was actually pretty decent for them. They had some big wins over Damwon, over Mad Lions, over RNG. It's just it was more so not what happened there, because I remember the takeaway from me from Cloud9 is aside from the loss to Pentanet, was kind of that they looked pretty good in international competition against some of these better teams. The problem was what happened to Cloud9 throughout the regular or the summer split at that point. Now we saw teams like Detonation Focus Me lose, I think, 2 out of their first 3 games after MSI. We saw the terrible results from RNG when they got back to start off. And the same thing can be said about Mad Lions. The real difference with every one of those teams was they really bounced back. And the same thing with even DK. They didn't look so good. They had all of those weird roster changes, but they came out and then they handled business. That was just never the case for Cloud9. They had moments, they had games where they played well, but they never really kind of regained that end of spring swagger. The team that went into MSI and performed well there just never showed up. And then they got beat down in the playoffs. And so you kind of had your worries, your concerns about Cloud9. Could they beat high level competition? And it's still fair to say, can they do that? Because they haven't necessarily faced the cream of the crop. We're in play-ins right now, but it does look like we're going to get to see them move on to groups, and so we will see how they stack up there. But this game was just kind of one of those perfect situations if you played Cloud9 and Peace, and Cloud9 was expensive, so you needed an underdog like Peace to play them. They weren't able to finish the game where it should have been maybe 21 kills. Maybe it should have been less than that, but they had to reset as Beyond was able to protect their Nexus. They had to reset, come back, get more kills. Fudge just had an absolutely monster game, 4-2-14. You saw Sven, 9-1-5. He always scores well when Cloud9 wins, despite what you might think of Sven as a overall actual League of Legends competitive player. When the team wins, typically he's going to score pretty well fantasy-wise. One of the higher scoring members on the team in wins. So with that, we get into the last game of that main slate. It was the team that looked absolutely fantastic yesterday in Galatasaray against DFM. And I don't know what happened in this draft for DFM. This draft was absolutely, the way that you wanted it to go. Galatasaray picks Nami, Jace, some of these champions that, while they have their role within the game, just certainly aren't good for DFS and aren't necessarily good for winning either. And predictably, they got rolled. I mean, if you were in the esports Discord and you saw, what was going on, everybody was trying to put money on this game at that point. If you could live bet Detonation Focus Me, who at that point was the underdog, you were in a good spot. And, there was some hope. I had a lot of GS in my live lineups. I had some Detonation Focus Me, but I needed this game to be absolutely bonkers for that to kind of pay off. And you got the first blood from GS. You felt kind of good, but then it just kind of fell apart from there. Detonation Focus Me just started dominating. And if you had DFM, I mean, there were some optimal lineups, but, this game didn't feel like it was going to be high scoring. It is kind of always feels like it is the case when you have a couple high scoring games and you get to the last one and it's just not there. It is nice if you're trying to fade it, but look, if you need to come from behind and rack up some kills and rack up some scores, it never feels good. But Detonation Focus Me looked really good. Galisari looked bad. We can kind of chalk up this game maybe just a losing draft and having a tough time there. So now we get into Unicorns of Love. Speaking of looking bad, playing against Beyond Gaming, this was the Beyond Gaming that we kind of hoped that we would see. Doggo dominating 8-0-4, and this Unicorns of Love team just looks just as bad as they did in this international competition, as they did in MSI when they lost to PendaNet, got knocked out in groups. So no big surprise there. Beyond Gaming, still is alive in the group. Unicorns of Love are eliminated with this game 19-6. If you're playing the late slate, I think almost everybody was probably on Beyond Gaming. I would guess that they were the chalk. And then Cloud9 came out and played Galisari. This game was a little bit different, but Cloud9 kind of was in control of it. There were a couple moments where Galisari kind of tried to assert their dominance, had some small little victories, but just were never able to snowball it in such a fashion that they could, take over this game. Cloud9 has looked fantastic. Again, this is the play-in stage, and, this is what you would expect from a team from a major region, albeit the third place team from the LCS, but they should come in here. They should dominate these teams. Galisari was a team that I didn't have a ton of expectations on coming in. They looked so good in day one. They tricked us. They fooled us. They looked terrible in day two. We'll see what day three brings. So let's go ahead and preview. We only have a 4-game slate, the last 4 games of groups. So let's take a look here. The play-ins. The first game is Infinity, who is completely eliminated, and then LNG, who is playing to guarantee themselves first place, which would move them on automatically to groups. This game is a negative 1,400. I will make this a little bigger, as it's probably difficult to read. And yeah, you should be able to read that. If you can't, you need some glasses or change your screen resolution. But we got LNG minus 1,400. Feels like LNG should roll this game. I would almost be inclined to take the over. Both of these teams, while there are implications, there aren't, but Infinity is going to want to come out. This is going to be their last game of the tournament. They're going to want to have a good time. They're not want to get embarrassed. And I think over 24 feels like a good number. LNG should get a high kill total. I know some of these games have just been completely one-sided, and so we've seen stuff like 17-5. I don't know. I think you could see like a 21-10 or 21-7 or something like that. And as a result, you could certainly bet the spread with LNG. You could bet the over if that's what you wanted to. I think both of those are in place. That negative 14 is not, obviously. The next game, we've got Peace versus Red. And, this is a game where I think both of these teams are playing for, assuming that Infinity loses. Let's take a look here. So assuming that Infinity loses to LNG, I think that's a pretty safe assumption. I believe that they are completely knocked out. They're 0-3, so they'll be 0-4. I think the top 4 teams play. Both of these teams are playing for seeding, basically, who they're going to play on the other side. The winner is going to move on. It has looked like to me that Red is a little bit of the better team, but maybe Peace is going to carry on that momentum. And, this could be a game for DFS that we want to target. Again, just like Peace Infinity was. I think this one can be. I don't want any part of red minus 250. I don't want any part of red minus 8.5, and that 30.5. That's just a huge number. I think if you're betting something in this particular game, you're going on piece side plus 185. Again, the volatility of a best of one with two teams that are relatively close in skill. Red handled Infinity. Piece was kind of neck and neck with them. So justifiably, red is the favorite here. Next, we've got Beyond Gaming as the favorite against Detonation Focus Me. And like, I don't know. What do you guys think? This one kind of has me puzzled. I'm not trying to overreact, but I want to kind of temper what I've seen with what I thought coming into the tournament. And what I thought coming into the tournament was that Detonation Focus Me was going to be a pretty good team. I also thought Beyond Gaming was going to be a good team, but they just really haven't shown that to me. And while Detonation or DFM had a bad game, no doubt about it, they've been pretty solid in other scenarios. So, two of the games they look good, one game they look bad. Beyond is the other way. They've looked bad in two games and good in another. So I don't know. I kind of don't think DFM should be the dog here based off of what we've seen at plus 120. I'd be interested in that. Probably not interested in any of the other parts of it, but that 25.5 is kind of interesting on the over. And then finally, Cloud9 should get a win against Unicorns of Love. Unicorns of Love have looked like the worst team. They've looked worse than Peace. They've looked worse than Infinity. Cloud9 has arguably looked the best of all of these teams, maybe except for LNG. So this should be no problem here. Probably not looking to bet any of those numbers on it, though. Take a look at some of the stats so far from the tournament when we're making those assumptions. And here's kind of what I'm saying about Cloud9. Their GPM so far for the tournament has been leaps and bounds above everybody. I mean, well, not everybody. LNG, Hanwha, Cloud9 are kind of in a class above their own. 2021, 1960, 1949, and then DFM is the 1778. And this is kind of, the numbers right here when we're looking at DFM in this Beyond game, while their goal per minute is similar, their goal differential per minute, 91 to 90. That's a pretty big difference when we're looking at these two teams. So, I think that Detonation Focus Me at plus 120 is a good bet. I want to, get something back after the last couple of days and get it back at plus odds. So there we go. Let's take a look now at the DFS slate for this and how we want to attack it. We've got projections up and running. I will tell you that for whatever reason, while I'm making this, we still don't have a doggo in there for ADC. That's okay. I don't believe that they are I don't think that their price is the favorite. Let's take a look at this. And I will make this bigger too so we can see. That's a little obnoxious. All right, here we go. So let's do this. I like to go get rid of everybody that isn't playing. So my lineups don't have anything that's all strange. So get rid of all of these. Go ahead, make it my pool. Go into the captain slot. Do the same thing. And let's go ahead into the optimizer. We set this for 80. I don't place up captains. We don't play team captains. We'll leave the top captain in just to do it. We'll apply the settings. We'll go here. And actually, I've got to do this first and then go back. And let's take a look at a couple favorites. What can we do? Can we play LNG with Cloud9? I'm going to guess probably not. Nope, not unless you want to play a sup or a team captain. Can we play red with LNG? And how is that going to look? Yeah, it looks like we can do that. We can do that with jungle captains. Let's see. Can we do it with Detonation Focus Me? Absolutely, we can. We can do ADC captains, mid captains. We can do just about anything we want there. From Beyond Gaming, kind of the same thing. We're looking more at kind of mid captains when we're doing that, or jungle captains on both sides. So that's an interesting way to play it too. And then Detonation Focus Me right here and Cloud9. Let's see how that works. ADC captains, very cool. It's not going to let us do an ADC captain here because we just don't have the second ADC, but it looks like it's just jungle and maybe mid captains. There might be a couple that we can do. And red and Cloud9. Let's take a look at this. See how this looks. Yeah, looks like mid captains. Or I'm sorry, those are jungle. Yeah, we got some mid captains. So kind of let's take a look at this from. Okay, so we think LNG is going to beat Infinity, but there is still the concern that Infinity has that lower death per loss, especially against good teams, especially if they get run over. I do think that they're going to put up a little bit more of a fight, but the premium that you're playing with LNG, with some of the other kind of safer teams, I'm not sure that that's where we want to go. I think Cloud9's a team that we want to build around, and I think they're pretty much a lock. And like I told you, I feel pretty strongly about Sven, and I'm going to show you why. If you go to this site right here, it's a site that I like quite a bit. They have a lot of cool tools here. Let's see. I'm going to pull something up, and this is a fun tool when we're looking at a couple of the players and trying to decide who the captains are going to be. You can see kind of sometimes that they have this chart here, but that's not where I want to go to. I want to go here. If we go to LCS, we go to Cloud9, we adjust this date range to something that's a little bit of a more relevant sample size. Let's go kind of mid-July, after all the Gourd Drinker and everything like that. And we look at kind of Cloud9, and you can see that the ADC position in leading the team in fantasy points is a lot of times it's going to be the ADC. We have it set for victory, so that's going to be Sven. Now, granted, this wasn't the best stretch of games for them, so we can go back and set it so we can look at kind of all of summer, and you see that the ADC is still the highest scoring player the majority of the time. And I don't think that is typically the way that people perceive Cloud9. I think a lot of times people think it's going to be Perk. Sometimes it's going to be Blabber. And granted, they're oftentimes very expensive, and so we have to go with Blabber as a captain. But, if we don't have to, and like I said, when we were playing, DFM, if you think that they're going to beat Beyond Gaming, and I kind of think that they will, you don't have to do that. We can go ahead with this Ven, just a simple 4-3 right here. I don't see any problem with that, and throwing in maybe like let's see what kind of salary we have left over. We got a 4-8. So if we got anybody other teams, you could throw a red in there to get a little bit different on a GPP lineup or something along those lines. But you can pull this for other teams too. If we look at, for example, CBLOL, let's see, red. You can see that they're a little bit different. Red is a team that you want to play your jungle captain. And so going back to that, we can play red with Cloud9. You could get this mid captain with Griefthar here and Perks, but you get Sven in it. The other guys that you're looking for is kind of the ADC. So, I think that this is an interesting spot. Do you make that decision? Do you go optimally? And do you put somebody like, if you're doing the large GPP, which is a little bit smaller at this point, do you do something like this? Do you go to the captain, you throw in like Aegis, you throw in Fudge, you throw in Blabber, you do a little action like this, get a little JoJo, and then you could go with a red team slot. I think this is different enough that given the size of the GPP now that it's been shrunk and it's been reduced, that you could play something like this and be a little bit different. But even if you wanted to be even more different, you could go with LNG. You don't actually have the money for that, so forgive me, but you could go with one of the two of these teams, Detonation Focus Me. You could go with Beyond Gaming. Either one of these teams fits into that slot, makes this a very, very unique lineup, one that's not going to be duplicated a lot and is going to give you kind of that upside. Again, we're maximizing the 3 highest scoring guys on Cloud9, and Fudge is overall a pretty high scoring top laner, not necessarily higher than the rest of the guys in victory, maybe in losses, but that's not what we're looking for. So then you can maximize your Red Candace exposure. You get him over there and put Agus in the captain. So that's one build there. I don't know. Let's take a look at OCL. Let's take a look at Peace. Peace made that run late, so let's kind of adjust this back to July. And you can see that Peace, despite what happened today with Tally, this is a team that gets carried by BABIP quite a bit, gets carried by Violet quite a bit. So those are places that you're going to want to go. Again, there's no salary problems in terms of building lineups with Peace. I think that they'll be pretty popular. That game is going to be popular. But yeah, so that's kind of all I got today. Those are running through a couple different projections, a couple different things. As you can see, the games tomorrow, top projected LNG Ale. It looks like he's the, oh no, I'm sorry. Yeah, that red Peace game looks like it is kind of projecting as the highest scoring. Whoever comes out of that game is who you're going to want to have. So predictions, LNG wins. Prediction, I'm going to go with Peace. Not going to feel good about it, but that's where I'm going to bet. So I'm going to go with Peace as an underdog. I'm thinking, based off of what I've seen, I think it's Detonation focused me, but I don't want to make the same mistakes that I've made throughout the entire tournament. I'm going to split this game. I think Beyond Gaming wins, but if in terms of, I think it's a 50-50. And so because it's a 50-50, I don't think the odds reflect that. So I'll bet DFM, and then Cloud9 rolls and goes undefeated and on to groups, and we get to see them in the next stage. Hey, guys, if you enjoyed this, again, please drop a subscribe on the YouTube channel. Check us out over at the esports department, and check out a lot of the other content that's there for CSGO, for Valorant. I won't be doing videos throughout the entire Worlds. John will be back. His videos are fantastic, very similar to mine, a little bit better probably. He's done a lot more of them, and then has a little bit more of a focus on cash. I don't really play cash, so I don't focus on it as much. But you can find my DFS content. I'll have some write-ups, maybe some videos over at drroto.com. We have a lot of premium stuff over there as well for NFL, NHL, NBA, and all of the other major sports. All of the DFS content, write-ups, and videos will be free over there as well. So, if you like it on either site, please consider donating. Hit the subscribe, and if you have any questions, hit me up in the Discord over at the esportsdepartment.com or on Twitter at EmrickD4U. And other than that, let's go have a great day 3. This is the last 4-game slate until we get to the actual group stage of the main part of Worlds. So pretty exciting Monday. I don't know. We could have up to an 8-game slate. That would be absolutely nutty. I'm looking forward to it. Have a good night, guys.